Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience today. Joining me today as my guest, I have Mary Henderson, and she is a personal branding specialist. She helps coaches and consultants define and commercialize their personal brand to help you profit and build on something that is long lasting and that is memorable. So that we're going to talk to Mary. She is definitely the go-to person when it comes to personal branding. So I definitely trust her to be on the show as a guest. Welcome, Mary. Thank you so much.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and thanks for having me. And hopefully we can, roll our sleeves up and give some value to the people that will listen to this broadcast.
Absolutely. So, Mary, as far as personal branding and how you got started, how did you get started in personal branding and believing that this was the way to go for you?
That's a brilliant start to this series because there's a real story behind why I do what I do today, Renee. And it actually started in year 2000. I was at the height of my corporate career, and I was working for a pretty big IT company at the time, in a fairly, serious role. And it was a new job, and my director said to me, so there's good news and there's bad news. The great news is that you have this amazing position. The bad news is that you have 12 weeks to fix a major problem. And we had a serious problem. The portfolio that I was given was a declining business. We just basically couldn't get it was just an operational issue, quite frankly. So I go and have a meeting with the client, and there's about, I don't know, 10 people around the table, and we're trying to figure this problem out. But the decision maker didn't actually show up to the meeting. So it was really null and void. It was a complete waste of time because nobody could make a decision. So I leave that meeting. I go to the lift door opens. I'm wearing red snakeskin boots.
Oh my goodness.
And and so I walk into the lift. There's a woman standing in the lift. I'm standing in front of her at this point, feeling sorry for myself. And she's checking me up and down. I could see the eyes behind my back, going up and down, up and down. And she looks at me and she says, I have to have those boots. And I knew it was her, the woman that was supposed to be in my meeting. And so I said to her, are you, such and such? And she said, yes, I am. I said, you didn't show up to my meeting. And she said, we're moving all of our business away from your company. It is
Oh
just,
wow.
yeah. And she said, so why would I be in that meeting if we've already made that decision? She said, you guys, she said, the three people that have been in your position before you haven't been able to fix the problem. I said to her, I can fix the problem. I know I can.
Okay.
And so I said to her, are you going downstairs to have lunch? And she said, yes. I said, surely you can have 5 minutes and have a coffee with me. And she said, no, I don't have. I said, look, I just want 5 minutes. You haven't met me. Give me that. Just give me the 5 minutes. If you don't like what you see in 5 minutes, I'll leave. And she said, okay, let's do 5 minutes. Anyway, in that 5 minutes, I basically sold her the reason why she really needed to give me an opportunity. And I said to her, I know I can fix this problem because I have a mathematical, analytical mind. This is an operational issue. I need to sit with your operations team for 12 weeks. I need to figure out how your system works and then bring that information back into our company so we can get the systems to actually talk to each other. But I can't do it if I don't sit with your operations team. She said, okay, I will give you 12 weeks. If you don't fix the problem in 12 weeks, it's over. I said, that's it. That's all I asked for. So I left that meeting, Renee, and I thought immediately, two things happened for me. Number one, I realized the power of having a like-minded zone, and that was fashion. We both connected not because of our job titles or because of the company we work for. None of that was evident in that 5 minutes. What was the most powerful trigger was our like-minded zone, which was fashion.
Oh wow.
That was number one. That was the conversation
So you
starter,
knew
as I
you
call it.
knew what was going to connect you in the beginning, but that was a bold move to make, first and
That's
foremost.
right.
It was.
Completely. And the second thing I realized when I sat in my car is if I fix this problem, and that was my mission. I was so determined to fix that problem because I realized that if I could fix that problem, I can position myself as a complex problem solver in the IT industry and be known as that in the industry to build my brand. So I realized the power of personal branding 19 years ago. And ever since that day, Renee, I've actually not just finessed the idea around personal branding and my methodology, but actually all my sales teams and my employees when I had my own company, I always brought personal branding as the epicenter of everything that I did. So all my sales teams did not have a title of business development manager or sales manager or a sales representative. They all were personal brands. And we built many businesses. I personally have been behind many businesses because of that reason.
That's so wonderful. That is awesome, to know where you got started, and it
Yeah.
sort of built that fire up for you. And one
Yes.
of the things that I remember you talking about on one of your videos, and I found that to be pretty profound, was when you talked about how a corporation should be prepared for a crisis when it comes to their personal brand. And some of the nuggets that you shared in that was so profound. Could you explain a little bit more about that so people can really understand where I'm coming from on that subject?
But personal branding in corporate has a long way to go. And that's because in major corporates, especially in the tier 1 sector, we've all been programmed to be compliant. That's step number one. And because we've all been trained to be compliant, this all starts from the school system, is that we're not prepared to stand out and say, I am this person. This is who I am. These are my passions. These are my interests. These are my gifts. These are my natural talents. This is who I am in my natural state. So instead of being compliant and fitting into a little box, which is called a job title, we need to transition or transcend out of that and get people to be their true natural self. So they're flowing, not going against the grain. They're coming into work every day saying, I love coming to work because I can be myself.
And a lot of people haven't really identified
No.
those things within themselves. And when we're talking about that, then we start talking about how to configure and formulate your personal
Yes.
brand.
Yeah,
And that kind
exactly.
of goes into that to understand how to go about formulating a personal brand. And most people don't even know how to because they
No.
are so compliant with everybody else's
Exactly.
agenda. Yeah, if you can go
Exactly,
to that,
Renee.
please. Absolutely.
Exactly. And that you just hit the nail on the head. Everyone has an agenda. So we are dealing in a society of complete fear based. It's fear
Mm,
based. That's what corporate is. You're dealing with 50-plus-year-olds that are wanting to hold on to their jobs. So they'll do anything to suppress the people below. That's the issue we're dealing with. Instead, what would be far more beneficial for everybody is to actually create a community type of a mindset where you can sit in a circle and explore each other for who
mm.
you are in your natural state rather than competing with each other. That's a
Ab-
much more beneficial way of
Wouldn't it be?
working and operating. Yeah,
Yeah, well,
exactly.
even when you speak about that, and we if we come as a community and we can really share
Yes.
values with each other, maybe then we'll have a better idea of how people perceive us and what they see, so we can better define what I think is one of the hardest things to define is what your values are when it
Yes.
comes to creating and
Yes.
a personal brand.
Yes.
Absolutely,
You're
absolutely.
absolutely right.
So
Absolutely.
if you can, because I know you talk a lot, you have so much content on this matter, but when we break it down, what actually constitutes curating a personal brand?
Great
If you
question,
go
Renee.
into the steps, yes.
Brilliant question. Absolutely brilliant. So, this is why I'm so passionate about educating people on personal branding, Renee. And it's really comes down to literally the last 19 years of my life. And what I know for sure about personal branding, Renee, is that it's not your LinkedIn profile. It's not how you show up in the world with what you wear. That's the effect of the cause. And I think that we're all focused on wanting to emulate somebody else and and believe that that is how we need to show up in the world to be a rock star personal brand. Personal branding has nothing to do with being a rock star status. It's actually defining your area of expertise and
Absolutely.
and owning that little part of the world as your area of what you know for sure. And what
Absolutely.
constitutes that is a combination of, and it's an inner and it's an inner and an outer process. Inner being, you need to be very clear on your story. Your
Mm-hmm.
story plays a massive role in your personal brand because that sets the foundation. We shouldn't be ashamed of our story. We should actually bring our story into the mix in such a huge way because people want to know that. Why do they want to know that? Because Renee, your story and my story are completely different. We
Absolutely.
can't have each other's story.
That's right. And it is important to share those stories so that,
Yes,
yeah, it is. So we bring knowledge and expertise to people, and it does so much good rather than
yes,
bad. It does much more good than bad to be able to share our vulnerable parts. And that's another part of your series and talking
yes,
about kind of, being vulnerable.
yes,
Yeah,
yes. Correct.
absolutely. So
So
I'll let you finish on what constitutes the, personal branding.
yeah. So the other part is, you need to know your story. You need to understand what your natural gifts and talents are. And let me explain that a little bit. I just want to expand on that. Too often I hear, especially women, say, I wanted to sing when I was young and I never pursued it. Now they're 55, they're still holding on to that story. The gift is not singing. The gift is the voice. Okay? The
Absolutely.
singing is the effect of the cause, yes? So instead of holding on to this dream that you once had, why don't you use your voice to
Mhm.
channel that gift into something else, right? We have social media. You want to sing? You've got all these platforms, like go for it. So that's
Absolutely.
my point. So understand your gifts and talents and how to channel those gifts and talents into your vocation, what you do every day, your job, your career, whatever. Um,
Absolutely.
understand your values at such a deep level because those values all must be interconnected into your story, your big why, what
Okay.
you promise the world,
Right.
the content you create. It has to show up in everything, Renee. Now, my core values are truth and freedom, and
Oh.
it's connected my to my big why, which is my family. Okay, my children. That's my driver. Now, when you see my content, even this interview right now, that core value of truth has to show through. So
Mhm.
so when I speak, it's black and white. There's no 50 shades of gray. It's just me. So
And
that
I get
value
that
is
from you as
such
well. Absolutely.
exactly. It's such a critical part of my brand. It's so
Absolutely.
important that I bring that out. So
Yeah.
values are critical.
Now
Um,
let's go a little deeper into the values because when I even look at myself and I think, what is my core values that I can bring to my audience or to my personal
yes,
brand? And sometimes that process of thinking about those values are a little bit more difficult. It's almost like when you're in an interview and they say, what are your weaknesses? And you're like,
yes,
oh my gosh, right? So just thinking about values, and I know you explained, some very important matters on that, some very important aspects on that.
yes.
But if we can dive a little deeper into that and we
Mhm.
want to really define and identify with those values, how do we actually define it and be able to implement that into our personal brand? Because it is different than I would think it's different than our personal lives and what we offer maybe in our relationships or But when it comes to relationships and business, would you say that those values would be the same, or would it be different because it has to do with your passions?
Well, I've spent a lot of time on this subject. And, when about 5 years ago, I actually designed an entire methodology for my personal branding, which now has become a full algorithm online. And
Okay.
one part of the algorithm is dedicated to just values. It's a course in itself, if you will, because it's that important. The values are consistent, first of all, across everything you do. It's got nothing to do with being this in your job and that in your relationship. You have one or two core values that show up in every area of your life,
Yes.
right? Now, I want to go one step further with why values are critical in business, because I think that most of your listeners will probably resonate with this, with what I'm about to say. When you understand your core values and you are clear on your non negotiable core values, what that means is that you will never attract the client from hell. It's the only way I can describe it, because you know what your value is. Now,
Absolutely.
right, when I speak to prospects on the phone, I can tell in the first 5 minutes if I want to work with this person. In one step further, if I can serve this person.
Absolutely.
Right. If I can't serve that person based on this style of coaching, consulting, and the values that come through in everything I do, that
Hmm.
person can't work with me because they will be constantly challenged. So I am a very black and white, say it as it is. You don't like it, you can't work with me. I don't
Absolutely.
beat around the bush, right?
Save time. Save time.
Yes,
Absolutely.
exactly. So
Yes.
now, but Renee, I'm exactly the same with my children and my husband and my friends. So
Okay.
my friends that take me shopping and say, "How do I look in this dress?" I'll say, "It looks really disgusting. Take it
Okay.
off."
Okay.
Okay?
We need
Truth.
people like that around us.
Right. And I think exactly right. Because I say to my friends, I don't want to tell you what you want to hear. If that's what you want, you take your mum. But if
Right.
you want the truth, you take me. Okay. And it's the way it is.
And
That's
that's
I can't
integrity.
hide that. My husband says to me all the time, he says, "Can't you just be a little bit subtle?" But the thing is that I'm trying to make you see the truth. Just get to the truth and just save
Absolutely.
time. I know it's hard, but it's important. So when you understand your values to that degree,
Hmm.
people know what they're in for, Renee. They just know what they're in for. There's no surprises.
Right.
And this is really, really key. So your values are all connected to a key part of your life. That's the trigger, which is called your big why. There has to be a big why.
Right.
And
Okay.
once you're clear on that, your values are connected to that in some shape or form,
I
which
love that.
therefore means must show up in every area of your life, your
I love that.
business, your relationships, your social life, on your content that you create on social, your friendships, spirituality, all of the things that you are, and all those elements that make up who you are, the
Okay.
values have got to be crystal clear.
That's where it stands. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Thank you so much for clearing that up, because I think it's important for most of it, because nowadays almost everybody is trying to create their brand
Yes.
because of social media. So
Yes.
so you're in the right business, Mary, to be able to coach these people, and one of the things that I find is having a niche.
Yes.
And I want to relate this back to you as well, because looking at your following and your videos, I see within your audience that you have created a niche by the amount of people or followers that you have, and they engage with you.
Yes.
So you are now in the light of the authority, because
Yes.
you know what your target audience is.
Yes.
Okay. So when I think about the laws of branding, I think about consistency,
Yes.
and I think about the credibility behind it. and I believe that when I see you, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you here, because you bring a certain credibility along with your brand, and I know that's important as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so other than values and the other things that we have talked about, and kind of creating this brand, how do you keep a strong brand? How do you maintain a strong brand?
Okay, so you hit a very important word, and that's consistency.
Okay.
Very important word in personal branding. So
Okay.
let me just unpack this a little bit, because the
Okay.
people that are listening to this that are really genuinely serious about building or showing up as a personal brand, there's some common mistakes that I see a lot of people make. Now, let's look at LinkedIn for a moment. There's a lot of people that call themselves influencers, or whatever. The problem with that is that they're not consistent. There's a lot of people that call themselves personal branding experts, for example, okay? Just like there's health experts and there's mindset coaches and all this sort of stuff. But I'm just going to use personal branding because that's all I know. But the personal branding experts, um, there's a bit of a problem and a bit of a disconnect. Number one is this: you can't become a personal brand just by reading a couple of books, or deciding that, I'm just going to own this space because, hey, I've got 30,000 followers and now I'm a personal branding expert. That's the first thing. The second thing is that it's not necessarily about owning a niche. It's just about being clear about who it is that you can serve, okay, and almost reverse engineering that. So understand what you know for sure. You have
Okay.
to package that today in today's digital economy. A personal brand cannot just have a mere conversation with a prospect. I have to have a methodology in order to survive in this digital economy that we're in, and we're heading in even deeper and deeper. So the
Mm-hmm.
coaches that don't combine technology and their knowledge and wisdom together, and form a level of IP, they will not survive either. So
Mm.
that's why, for me, building an algorithm, that's my IP. It
Wow.
completely sets me apart from everybody else. And that's the way I want it to be, because I know my space for sure. The other
Absolutely.
thing is that when you're creating content on social, and I use LinkedIn in a very big way, the consistency is critical. So Renee, when you see my content, you know what you're in for. There's no surprises. I'm not going to have my child in the background. I'm not going to get my 7-year-old telling my audience how to run an entrepreneurial business. There's no cats, there's no dogs, there's none of that. I'm just not interested in that, because that doesn't match me and
Right.
my message and my promise. Okay, that's a complete disconnect. So this is what we see. We see inconsistency. Why do we see that? We see that because the guys that actually do that are addicted to the dopamine hit. They want the likes, the comments,
Yeah.
because that's their agenda. That's not
Absolutely.
my
That
agenda.
is so
My
true.
agenda, exactly. My agenda, and so should everyone else's be, is that I don't care about how many likes and comments I get. Let me tell you what I care about. I care about how many people send me a private message and say, I need your help. That's what I care about,
Absolutely. That's the
right?
whole point of doing it.
That's
Otherwise,
the whole
it would
point.
be pointless.
Exactly. So,
Absolutely.
so, so here's the bottom line to a personal brand. If the person that you are talking to claims to be a personal branding expert or some other expert, for me, if I can't commercialize your personal brand, you are not a personal brand. You're just a part of the white noise.
Mm, wow. Now that's something that people need
Okay.
to hear when
Oh,
they're
yeah.
in another world. They need to come back to reality, and you just hit them with
Yes.
reality.
That's exactly right. So
Absolutely.
it's not, it's just, I want to be famous. I want to be famous. I don't care what I stand for. I need that dopamine fit. Now, if I can't commercialize your personal brand, you are wasting your time,
Mhm.
number one, your
Absolutely.
energy, number two, and you will just be constantly at the start line. My job is to push you from the start line into the game.
Absolutely.
You need to be in the game as quickly as possible.
And that makes a lot of sense because one of the things I'll bring up is when people form a YouTube channel, they're
Yes,
thinking that they just build an audience and people will just call them. But really, in
yes,
reality, it's about having a business already that you want to grow. And
yes,
therefore, you commercialize it for profit. And that's
yes,
something that you would help them
yes,
realize and help them strategize some kind of method to grow that. And,
exactly.
right, so that makes sense. So, so anybody out there that's looking to grow your brand and you're looking to form a YouTube channel, you have to have some kind of business, and that
Yes,
business um, kind of leads into well, not lead into, but your passion leads into your business and then forming a channel on YouTube.
yes, exactly. It's exactly right. And as I mentioned before, my job is to actually extract all of the information and then help my clients package that into a solution that can solve a complex problem.
Oh,
Very
absolutely.
important.
Oh,
Very important.
very
So,
nice.
because I'm thinking, like when I'm thinking about a methodology, I'm always thinking like a formula. What's your formula? What is your way?
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's really
Absolutely.
important.
So when we talk about formulating, I think that reverse engineering has something to do with that, correct?
Yes,
Can you
massively.
go into what that is
Yeah.
when you talk about reverse engineering to help someone create their brand?
When I'm talking to prospects, especially the corporate guys that are leaving their three, four, $500,000 job to go into a consulting role, they're hilarious because they'll say to me, I'm an expert in everything. I've got so many areas of expertise. I don't know how to package it, and so I always start off by saying to people, I know you think you're an expert, but what do you know for sure? What do you actually know for sure? So I usually start off by asking them to illustrate on the whiteboard. Okay, you've just expressed that you're an expert in all these areas. So we list them down. Now I want you to illustrate for me this step number, the first thing that you're an expert in, and
Mm,
show me the methodology that you would take me on to achieve that goal. So usually they'll look at me with a blank face and they'll say, no, I don't know. I don't have a methodology for that. I just know it. Well, if you know it, you should have a methodology. But just
absolutely.
illustrate the process. So out of the 20 things that they're an expert in, it usually comes down to one or two things, right? That they can actually illustrate for me.
Mhm, that's true.
That's what I use
Okay.
as the starting point. That's the foundation because that's what they know for sure. And so what happens is that it just strips away the ego and it gets them into a place of complete focus. Now we're going to build a solution based on what you know for sure. Why do we do that, Renee? Because when I'm sitting with a client, I need to be having a conversation like I'm having with you. I shouldn't be referring to my notes or books, or I should just be relaxed and should be able to just express what I know for sure the way I'm doing it right now. That's the key.
So you need
That's
to eat, sleep, and breathe it.
yes, exactly.
To be an expert,
Exactly.
that is true. I mean, you have to be the become the authority. So basically, you have to eat, sleep, and breathe it. Um,
Precisely.
and
Precisely.
you'll be able to illustrate and demonstrate and talk
Yes.
effortlessly about it. You
Yes.
are
Yes.
correct about that. So,
Absolutely. So I think the unpacking process in the skills part, which is what we do in my algorithm, is I actually get people to think
mhm.
laterally. What is it that you know for sure? And it's interesting when they get to that part of the process, how they just stop and they get really confronted by it. Why? Because it's not easy. It's not easy. You can't just sell information anymore, Renee. It's not
Mm,
monetizable. And I'll tell you why. I can get on my iPhone right now and ask Siri any question and almost get information on 99% of the things that I ask Siri, right? So
well,
education is no longer has currency, right? It's the methodology and
ooh,
it's your IP. It's connecting your knowledge, your wisdom, and your methodology, whether it be in in a written format or an online format, all of these need to converge, and you call that your IP. It's your way, not
Ooh,
Siri's way,
I
your
love
way.
that. I love that. That should be the topic of this show. It should be
Yes,
your way.
it should be your way.
That is
Exactly
so
right.
brilliant. That was beautifully said, Mary. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you,
Um,
Renee.
and I believe that what you just said, it will set you apart. I mean,
Yes,
that's the magic right
that's
there.
the magic.
Yes.
Absolutely. You're right. You're absolutely right. And so that's what I mean when I talk about commercialization. So my job is to get people to that place where they are so proud of that methodology because it's theirs. It hasn't been taken from a little bit here, a little bit. You know, all these mindset coaches, that's what they do. It's like a little bit here, a little bit of Tony Robbins, a little bit Eckhart Tolle, a little bit of Oprah, a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
It's
so
not
transparent.
authentic.
No, I
That's
want
right.
to know your way. Give me your way. And
Wow.
that's what people can't do or they're not doing.
And that is a skill to be able to gather that information and create something that's totally different and unique
Yes. Yes.
than everybody else that's out there because you're not taking it from everybody. So do you have sort of like a test that they take, or do you go through an assessment with your
Yes. So
clients? Okay.
yeah, the algorithm. So when they actually work with me, the algorithm takes them to this entire process, and it basically spits out a whole heap of reports, and those reports actually help build the positioning. You know, define what they stand for, what they do, who they serve, what they promise. It's a whole narrative. It's very important that we get that narrative right, because you only get one chance of building your personal
Mhm.
brand. I can't be Oprah today and Joan of Arc tomorrow. I've got to just be Mary and stick to
Absolutely.
that and know what Mary looks like.
I love that. It's about
Yes,
you. And
totally.
creating that, absolutely. So that definitely explains to me because again, I like to relate this to me because I don't want it to be just about the scheme of how to develop it. But when I think about it, I know that most people in my audience can say the same thing, is when we're thinking about creating that brand, we don't really even think of really that strategy and that method, that
We
method.
don't.
And
We
yeah,
don't.
don't think about it. And I think we're losing
Yes.
so much and so much time, first of all. And
Yes.
we're missing out on so many opportunities.
Absolutely. The other thing is, Renee, what I think is really important to note here is this, that I get a lot of people that say, I love Oprah. I aspire to be like Oprah or, like Marie Forleo. What they're aspiring to be is fame and fortune. Okay.
Mm,
That is not personal branding. Okay. Now, the other thing I want to stress here, and I think this is really important, my version of personal branding is pretty special because there's a lot of aspects to it. Remember, I'm commercializing. I'm not just creating a LinkedIn profile or a YouTube channel. It's of no value to me. That's the cause of the effect. There's a couple of things I want to talk about here, and it's really important to mention this. When somebody decides, I want to build a personal brand, as you know, that requires a really thick skin,
mm,
because you have to take the good, bad, and ugly. You are showing up in the public through social media as your whole self. There is nothing but you and yourself that show up each and every day. Some people, many people won't resonate with that. Many people will comment in a very derogatory way. Many people will love what you bring to the table. You've got to be able to take all of that. Okay, really all of that. But you have to be consistent.
mm.
Every day is about content creation. It's about showing up on your platform of your choice or choices and being consistent every single day without fail. Without fail. That's
Absolutely.
why Gary Vee's so successful. You know why he's successful? Because every day he produces one piece of content across
Wow.
22 different platforms. Okay?
Wow.
That's why. So
Now,
you
do you actually advise people to work on different platforms or grow one at a time?
my advice is this: you go to the platforms where your target audience hang out.
Mm.
That's it. Okay. My audience are mostly on LinkedIn. The majority, well, I
Yeah.
would say 98% are on LinkedIn.
Okay.
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 Some of them are on Facebook for their personal stuff. But when I'm having a business conversation, and I've tested this, Renee, my content on LinkedIn, as you can see, the engagement is ridiculously high, ridiculously high.
Absolutely.
We're talking about, in some cases, 10, 20, 30,000 views, hundreds of likes, hundreds of comments. It's consistent almost every day, right?
Mhm.
Now, I've tested this for I don't know, maybe a couple of months. The same video on Facebook gets 1 or 2 likes, but
Mhm.
on LinkedIn it gets hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of
Absolutely.
engagement. Yeah, two
Okay.
different
I've
audiences.
seen that for myself with you. So I
Yeah,
absolutely can attest to that. So true.
correct.
Um,
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So it's interesting. Even the I Am No Labels campaign that I created for International Women's Day, same thing. It's had received thousands and thousands of views
Beautiful.
and engagement. And I did exactly the same on Facebook, and it's had like 8
Not the
likes.
same.
Go figure.
Not the same.
Not the
Absolutely.
same.
And I know you have another podcast that you have
Yes.
to go to. Was there anything that you wanted to leave the audience with, or just give them your website or anything else?
Yeah. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me, maryhendersoncoaching.com is my website. You can contact me through there, or please connect with me on LinkedIn, because that's really where I hang out, which is linkedin.com/in/Mary Henderson Coaching. And I think that's the best way to connect with me, or even just on Facebook. Just tag me on this video, and I'll definitely reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mary. And I just want to leave just a bit of information. If anyone wants to be on the Renee Adams Show, please reach out to me if you have a product or service or inspiring story that you would like to tell. I would love to hear. Of course, it is all about a pitch, and if it works with me, it's all good. So just get in contact with me, and we'll work it out. And I really appreciate everyone for watching. I appreciate you, Mary, for
Thank you, Renee.
all of your knowledge and bits of information on the show with me today as well. So,
Thank you. Thank
yes,
you. I appreciate you too. Thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to spread my message and educate people on what personal branding really does look like.
absolutely beautiful. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much and have a great weekend.
You too. See you later.
Bye-bye.